Hello, everyone. My name is Lucian. Most of you know me from Twitter as Triangle Investor. In today's edition of CEO and Market Expert Interviews, I am very pleased to have Keith Bodnarchuk, Cosa Resources CEO. Cosa Resources is an exploration company with 100% owned land package of more than 178,000 hectares on 11 uranium projects in the Athabasca. The stock is trading on TSX.V under the symbol COSA, in the US on the OTCQB under the symbol COSAF, and Germany in Frankfurt Stock Exchange under the symbol SSKU. Keith, welcome once again. It is great to have you.
Great to be back.
Thanks. Before we dive into company developments, I want to hear what do you think about the current status of the uranium market? We have spots over $83. We have U.S. House passed the bill banning uranium imports from Russia, physical market tightness, and much, much more. What's your take?
Yeah, exactly. I really just think it's just getting started, and I think a lot of people would agree with that. And I think it's interesting, like you said, physical market tightness, and you've seen small orders on the spot market that's starting to move the spot price by dollar amounts, right? Which is, really probably hasn't happened since 2004 or 2006. It just shows how tightly held it is right now. And I think another thing that people, are starting to discuss is last go around, everybody was like $60 uranium. That's the incentive price for, fringe economic projects to come online. That's not what it's going to be this time. That's for sure, because, taking into account inflation, looking at, producers will be smarter this time. They don't want to turn something on if the price is only going to stay high for 2 years, right? Yeah. So I think people are a lot smarter in that regard this time. And also another thing people aren't talking about is because the uranium price was in such, it was in such dire for about 10 years, we lost a lot of our skilled personnel. People I started being an exploration geologist with during the last cycle are all gone. The people that were working in McArthur River, places like that, a lot of those guys are retired. And so for people to think that, producers are going to be able to just replicate, past successes with ease, that's going to be difficult. And I think, people will see that as, everything is becoming more expensive and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of an interesting point that, people are starting to discuss, like, where are we going to get those skilled personnel to put these things into production?
Yeah, so you'll see that as a big issue.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, obviously, if the price gets high enough, it can incentivize, so you can, make a few mistakes in regard to putting something in production, but, it's going to be higher than what it currently is.
Yeah, agreed. Keith, it has been a very busy couple of months for you. Your company acquired 7 new projects from June. The latest addition was Aurora uranium project. Can you please tell me how did you acquire this project, overview and plans for Aurora?
Yeah, so interesting. We reached out to a vendor who, has other projects and felt that they weren't going to be able to get to Aurora in time before it lapsed. And so we put through an offer, of 150,000 shares and 20,000 Canadian, which is, very good value, I'd say, in this competitive uranium market, to get just over 16,000 hectares located 16 kilometers away from the Key Lake mill. So, it is in as good as area of the Athabasca Basin as you can be, as far as access, logistically, and we saw it as a real opportunity to bring it into the fold and add to our pipeline of projects. Plans for that. So we've reviewed, so it hasn't really been drilled since, I believe, it's 1979, but interestingly enough, going through the old drill logs, our group did, and you started to see that there were some interesting results in those old drill holes with alteration and structure, and just those certain things you start to look for when you're looking for prospective ground. And so for us, this thing hasn't seen what you call modern exploration. So we would go and we do some modern geophysics, just like we did on Ursa recently, and really set ourselves up for a drill program. Importantly, it is just on the edge of the Athabasca Basin, so you're looking at a portion of it doesn't even have sandstone cover, and then the other parts would be 100 to 150 meters. So it is cheaper drilling in that area, and I think that part of the basin, it is 40 kilometers south of 92 Energy's GMZ zone. Yeah, and that's interesting enough. That part of the basin has really been upgraded with recent activity in that area, and I think it's one where it's becoming more and more important for people to start looking at that area. So for us to grab that, piece of ground for, really tremendous value, I think was a good win for our team.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Before that, you have acquired, I don't know if I will pronounce it right, Solstice Uranium Exploration Program.
Solstice.
Solstice,
Yeah.
sorry. I'm a
Yeah.
European guy, sorry.
Yeah, no worries, no worries, no worries. And so I think, really what happened was that, I guess it'd be just over 2 years ago, there was, I guess the uranium boom almost started in the Athabasca Basin, where all the good land started to become staked and acquired. And so, but what that does is that triggers, okay, a company or a prospector has 2 years to spend a certain amount of money on it to keep it in good standing.
Yeah.
So, and if that prospector or company is unable to, spend whatever it is, $15 a hectare to keep it in good standing, it becomes available again. It's a very competitive process. It opens at a certain time of day. Everybody stakes it. Often it's fragmented into 100 different pieces because, 500 companies are trying or 500 people are trying to stake it. But, we've done
Really,
a decent...
500 companies.
It are people, right? Because
Yeah.
companies, I'm just using that as an example, right? But
Yeah,
I think
but it's a big rush.
it's a very, very competitive process. And I think that, our group's done a good job of, being one of the top as far as getting that land. And if you are able to, you're staking it for 60 cents a hectare, which is tremendous value.
Yeah.
And decent ground is still becoming available because, like I said, 2 years ago, or just over 2 years ago, there was a big land grab in the Athabasca Basin where a lot of decent stuff was acquired.
What about Polaris and Eclipse uranium exploration projects? You acquired that also. Can you give us an overview of those two? What is the stage of those projects? Those are early stage like this one, like the one before. Tell me more, please.
Yeah, and so I thought those were good opportunities because they're located in good areas in the basin. And it's important for us to always keep a pipeline of projects. Like I think last time we spoke, and you spoke to Andy Carmichael, our VP of Exploration, a lot of the focus is on Ursa. That remains our top priority, but it's always important to keep a pipeline of projects. And both of those were acquired through that cost-effective staking, and we'll continue to do that. I think because you can keep that pipeline of projects and whether we ultimately work it ourselves or we end up, selling it to somebody else, it all depends on what we see as the future potential of it. But majority of our projects, we're going to go and, at least do some initial geophysics to see what it shows and decide whether it makes sense for us to spend our capital drilling those projects or ultimately moving on and either JVing or selling it outright to other groups.
Okay. On November 1st, you have announced results of Airborne geophysics at Ursa and Orion uranium projects. Like you said, I had your VP of development of exploration, Andy Carmichael, in my show. He explained the result from his side, geo side. You can find this, my viewers can find this interview on my website as well. It was a great interview and he's a very smart guy. But what do you like the most about these results, Keith? What are they telling you?
I think when we acquired Ursa and we set out and started to explain what we hope to find, I think the good news is it's even exceeded our expectations for what we thought we might initially get with a geophysics survey. And it's starting to tick those boxes of what we look for as potential great drill targets. And what's interesting too is obviously it flagged like 100 kilometers of conductive trend, but importantly, it prioritized about 25 kilometers of that. So I think when you head out to do these geophysical surveys, you don't want the entire trend to light up and look prospective, because that probably means that your survey, wasn't as successful as you thought it would, because that entire trend is not going to be as prospective. And so what this did was it gave us 10 kind of key areas, which adds up to about 25 kilometers of that trend. And that gives us a good starting place to start, going in and do ground geophysics and start developing drill targets ahead of our initial drill campaign in the next, 4 or 5 months here. And so I think important for me and from my perspective was that, okay, that first box is ticked. It did light up geophysically of what we potentially look for. And next step will be ground geophysics followed by drilling. So I think it was a great logistical and technical success.
Okay, like you said, you have received the essays and you announced the exploration permits for Ursa. But Keith, can you expand a little bit more on the answer? What are you planning to do there? What kind of work? When do you plan to start? Please expand.
So we'll be doing ground geophysics at Ursa. The results were airborne geophysics that we released about a month ago.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna start doing ground geophysics, mobilizing here, I'd say end of December and completing that survey in January.
Okay.
And then we'll start to mobilize in the drill, and we're looking to start drilling around March would be our goal.
Okay.
And a good thing with that too is that we can mobilize in a lot of equipment and stuff ahead of a summer drill campaign too, which could save, it's more cost effective to haul everything in the winter. So that's our goal. So it'll be initial winter program in March, followed by would be a larger summer drill campaign.
Okay. Do we have a estimate of how many meters will you drill? How deep will you go?
So I'd say our goal this winter would be 3,000 to 4,000 meters that we're looking at.
Okay.
And then this summer we'd look for a larger program for that. But it all depends on weather and things like that. But that is our goal heading out there in March.
So we will have March drilling, and after that we will probably have a summer drilling.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay, okay. And can you tell me more about relations with the First Nations on Ursa and other properties?
Yeah, I think we've been able to reach out to all the groups in that area, and we are in discussions with them and constant contact. And I think we try and just be very transparent and provide updates all the time. And we've had, like I said, good conversations with them. There's long-standing relationships there, right, from other companies that worked at previously, and there's a lot of great groups out there that are just that can help us, as far as contractors and subcontractors and helping us with the projects and things like that. So, we really take pride in trying to employ and, use a lot of the contractors that are closely related to the northern communities.
Yeah, that's smart. Do you have exploration plans for your other 9 projects? What is the status? Are they all in good standing?
Yeah, they are all in good standing. I'd say half one next year, and even the first part of half two will be focused on Ursa. We view that as our top priority at this point, and we think we have the best drill targets there. And so that's why we'll prioritize that. I think, the other projects like that, I think half two next year, you'll start to see us do geophysics and things like that, and probably set ourselves up for potential drill campaigns in 2025 on those projects. If we have interesting results at Ursa, obviously that will continue to take priority, but we will ensure that we keep our ground in good standing.
Okay, Keith, will you continue to add more hectares to your portfolio in the next period? Are you targeting to acquire projects like so far on the known uranium corridors, trends? What's the plan here?
We're always looking. I think it's important to keep a good pipeline of projects. I think it's important to remember too, when we were at ISO Energy, it was actually, I believe, our 7th project where we ultimately hit hurricane. So you do have to keep that pipeline of projects going. And, if we have Ursa and if we're able to upgrade, if that's A and we're able to upgrade B, C, D, we'll continue to do that, right? Our ultimate goal is to make a discovery. And so we'll continue to look for ground that we think gives us that best chance.
Yeah, you mentioned your prior successes, and you and your team are really one great group of people with serious track of success of finding big uranium deposits like Hurricane deposit in the Athabasca. Some of you worked on Triple R, Phoenix, Griffin, J-Zone, I think. My question, Keith, do we have all the ingredients to repeat those kind of success again?
Definitely. And I think, Ursa, like I said, is our top priority, and it really ticked all those boxes of what we look for as an opportunity, and an opportunity where we think there's a lot of room, to host, potentially multiple potential discoveries, but also one where it hasn't seen a lot of exploration on it. So like it's one that we really view as that top priority. And discoveries are difficult. They've always been difficult, but I think you just got to remain agile. You got to remain nimble. And if Ursa's not yielding results we want, then we'll move on to one of our other projects, right? Mm-hmm. I think you just have to remain adaptable to that. So I think we do have all the ingredients, and so far it has looked really good as far as our geophysics and other aspects go. Looking at historical drill core at Ursa, it does have those potential ingredients to ultimately lead to a discovery. So that's our goal, and we're hoping that we're right with that one.
Yeah, I know your projects are early stage projects, but do you see some geological similarities with some of the known deposits in the Athabasca that you worked on?
Definitely, right? I think Steve Blower, our chairman, obviously a tremendous track record of discovery and success in the basin. He always says that locally these deposits are very hard to find, but regionally there is a pattern to them, right? You have almost like these string of pearls we can map, from McArthur River down to Phoenix Griffin down to Key Lake. And really, when we looked at the basin overall, we thought that next great analog to the McArthur River trend and trends like that was the Cable Bay Shear Zone, which is our Ursa project. And so when we started digging in deeper to that project, we realized, okay, the past work that was done in the 90s, 80s, they did drill about 15 holes on the property, but geophysics wasn't what it is today, right? So it was difficult to target in that area. What was interesting is they actually hit a little bit of mineralization. And so they were unable to drill the optimal target. Our geophysics showed that, we would have drilled elsewhere. Mm-hmm. But they still hit a little bit of uranium mineralization, and it's 0.2% in the order of that, which people don't think, okay, that's not high grade, obviously, but it does show that trend is fertile, yeah. Right? And I think interestingly enough, when the ISOEnergy, our team at ISOEnergy discovered Hurricane, there was a good looking structure in the sandstone, a bit elevated, and they projected that down to the unconformity, and they hit Hurricane. When I used to work at Denison Mines, obviously, and Steve Blower was our VP of exploration when they ultimately found Griffin, and that one was interesting too, in the sense that they had a little bit of mineralization in the basement just below the unconformity, went up to the unconformity with past drilling, didn't hit anything. Those guys went further down dip, hit Griffin in the basement. So I think, it is important that these trends are fertile, and it is important that there's a lot of space available, to fit maybe that next great elephant-sized deposit, and that's what we saw there.
Okay, Keith, what about the cash position of the company? Do you have sufficient cash to carry on this exploration program that you?
Yeah, definitely. We're sitting around $5 million in the treasury. We're in great shape heading into this upcoming exploration season at Ursa. So yeah, we're in a strong cash position.
Fully covered. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you believe that COSA, not just COSA, other uranium junior companies will have a problem with access to capital in the future?
I think you've seen a lot of companies start to access capital right now, and I think that's a good sign. Exactly. I also know that the overall market remains volatile, right? And so there's always that level of risk, but I think investors, are starting to understand, and funds and whoever are starting to understand, we are at the start of something really significant in the uranium space. And so I think, obviously capital is always difficult to raise, and I think a lot of juniors are probably struggling with, because, they're not at the valuations they want to be when they're raising this. But, that is a good sign that you are starting to see companies be able to bring in a lot of capital. And I think, it's great for the sector, obviously, to bring more eyes on it. So I think, I never want to say that capital is easy to raise, but I think we're in decent shape right now where groups have been able to access it, and I hope that continues.
Yeah, and the big money is, let's say, favorable for uranium. I spoke with a lot of bankers, brokers, etc., and a lot of CEOs of silver, precious metals company, and I can tell you they love uranium, but precious metals so. They are not going to fund any project or any company. Okay, can you tell me more about your share structure?
So we're sitting with just over 46 million shares outstanding, extremely tightly held. We have 24% would be management, advisors, insiders. About 21% is I'd call funds and strategic investors, and the rest would be retail. Yeah,
it's
so
around 50% retail, so to say.
Yeah, exactly. So it has been tightly held. I think, from a timing wise, it's worked out that we obviously came to market and we've been able to, keep our share structure tight. And importantly, you'll see all of us as a group, we continue to buy on market and we continue to participate in all financings. I think we really believe what's happening with COSA and also the overall uranium market, and just know that, it is going to be a fantastic time, hopefully for the uranium market.
Yeah, I saw your insider filings, and it's all green. There is no red color on them. All buying, no selling.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I just believe in what we're doing here, and you'll see Steve, our chairman, buy lots on market too, and others in our group. I just think we just believe what's happening here, right, and what we're trying to build, and we'll continue to buy on market.
Yeah. Okay. What about M&A in the sector? Do you see more activities down the road, like for example, ISO Energy and consolidated uranium transaction? Do you see that more often in the future? Those kind of transactions.
Definitely. I think you're seeing a lot of M&A happen here, and I think, if groups can see that 1 + 1, equals 3, they're going to continue to keep doing these levels of M&A, and you're going to start to see it trickle down to the junior space. You are starting to see it, and I think that's great. For one thing, obviously, it really tightens up, the availability of good companies out there, right? And as juniors kind of come together, that's one less stock that's available to bid on. And I think, I don't know, I always think it's great when M&A is happening in the sector, and I think it is going to continue.
Yeah, Keith, as we have witnessed that Cameco and some big players reach their all-time highs, and when you look at the explorers, they are still lagging. Do you believe that trend is about to change?
It does feel that way. I think, obviously the capital, when it first enters the space, they're going to go to what they deem as safer investments, the Camecos, and it's starting to go down to the next gens.
Yes.
That's starting to go closer to the kind of the smaller developers now too. And then eventually it is going to start to trickle down to the juniors. And you could see that, they do remain, the capital has been there, like we talked about, but the valuations aren't there yet. And there's just so much room for them to bridge that gap in between, what the value of the developers are relative to the explorers. So I think there is going to be a lot of explorers that do start to see much higher valuations heading through next year.
Agreed. Final question, Keith. Possible news flow from which projects? When can we expect some news flow?
Yeah, so obviously Ursa, we will be doing ground geophysics there over the next month and a half, and then you'll see a lot of news flow heading into our initial drill program at Ursa in March. So, I think it's an exciting time for us. I think a lot of people have been waiting for us to eventually start to drilling and really do what we do best, and that's explore.
Okay. That was Keith Bodnarchuk, Cosa Resources CEO. Keith, well, thank you very much for coming to my show, and let's catch up sometime soon again.
Great. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.